The first rays of sunlight barely touched the horizon when the medieval blacksmith was already awake. Long before the village stirred to life, the blacksmith's forge was glowing, the coals being coaxed back to life from the embers of the night before. His life was one of fire, sweat, and skill, a rhythm carved out by the hiss of steam and the ring of hammer on iron. It was a life of essential work, and though not one of luxury or nobility, it earned him deep respect from the villagers who relied on his craft every single day. A blacksmith's day began with preparation. The forge had to be fed carefully, with charcoal or wood arranged to achieve the intense heat needed to soften iron. Bellows pumped rhythmically, breathing air into the fire like a giant mechanical lung, forcing it to burn hot enough to bend metal. This was a task in itself, requiring effort and precision. Without the right temperature, nothing could be shaped properly. A fire too weak wasted time. One too hot could damage the iron. It was a delicate balance that every experienced blacksmith learned to master over years of trial and error. As the fire roared to life, tools were set in order. Tongs, hammers, chisels, and swages lined the workbench, each one worn by time and use. The anvil, solid and unmoving, stood in the center like a throne. Around it, the blacksmith moved with practiced efficiency. There were no idle moments. Work came to him in a steady stream, sometimes even faster than he could manage. Farmers brought plowshares that needed sharpening. Knights arrived with dented armor and broken swords. Villagers requested horseshoes, nails, locks, and hinges. Each item, no matter how simple, required time and care. Much of a blacksmith's day was spent in the same repetitive motions. Heat the iron, pull it from the fire, hammer it on the anvil, reheat, hammer again. The iron had to be struck while glowing red or yellow, the metal soft enough to shape. Sparks flew with every impact, lighting the dark corners of the forge. The clang of iron on iron echoed through the village, a familiar rhythm that meant progress. Sweat dripped from the blacksmith's brow as he worked, his thick leather apron scorched and stained from countless hours by the flame. But this was not mindless labor, it was art. Every hammer strike had purpose. A blacksmith had to understand the nature of the metal, how it bent, when it cracked, how it cooled. One mistake and a whole piece could be ruined. Sometimes the work was simple, like making nails or horseshoes. Other times it was intricate, like crafting a sword that would hold its edge in battle, or designing a decorative gate for a noble's estate. And each customer came with specific needs. A knight wanted balance in his blade. A farmer needed durability in his tools. The blacksmith's role was to translate those needs into objects of lasting strength. His hands bore the marks of his trade. Calloused palms, burns, and small scars were part of the uniform. The forge was a dangerous place. Hot coals could leap without warning. Sparks could catch on clothes. Heavy iron could slip and crush fingers. But the blacksmith worked with confidence, his body conditioned by years of lifting, swinging, and standing. It was grueling physical work, but there was pride in it. He built the village from the inside out. Without him, wheels would stop turning, doors would not open, and weapons would lie broken in battlefields. Throughout the day, apprentices often bustled around the forge. Young boys, sometimes as young as 10, would haul water, clean tools, or man the bellows under the watchful eye of the master. Becoming a blacksmith took years of training. Apprenticeship was long and difficult. It started with sweeping floors and ended, hopefully, with the skills to open a forge of one's own. Many failed to endure the physical demands. But those who did found themselves with a secure future. Skilled blacksmiths were always in demand, even in the most remote villages. There were moments in the day when the blacksmith might leave the forge, especially if he was also a farrier, someone who cared for horse hooves and applied horseshoes. He would walk from the smithy to the stables, tools in hand, to wrestle with nervous animals. Shoeing a horse was a test of patience and agility. The animal needed to be calmed, its hooves cleaned and trimmed, and then the shoe fitted and nailed into place. One misstep could mean a kick to the ribs or worse, but it was all part of the job. Meals were quick and taken between tasks. A chunk of bread, a bit of cheese, maybe a bowl of stew. Often the blacksmith ate standing up, wiping soot from his face before grabbing a bite. He drank water or ale, always nearby in a clay jug. The forge never truly rested, and neither did he. Even during mealtimes, customers might arrive with urgent repairs or new commissions. Later in the afternoon, he might begin work on more specialized orders. Armor repairs were common in times of conflict. A damaged breastplate needed reshaping. A cracked helmet had to be reforged. These were detailed tasks, often requiring more than brute force. The blacksmith needed a steady hand and a sharp eye. His work might decide whether a knight lived or died in the next battle. The weight of that responsibility was never spoken aloud, but it was always present. Children often gathered outside the forge, peeking through the door to catch a glimpse of the fire. The blacksmith was a figure of fascination, working with fire and iron like a magician. His muscles, his tools, and the glowing coals made him seem larger than life. Stories about him traveled around the village. Some claimed he could bend iron with his bare hands. Others whispered that he spoke to the flames. These tales added to his mystique, even if he simply smiled at them behind his beard. As evening approached and the sun dipped low, the forge began to quiet. The bellows rested. The fire, once roaring, was allowed to fade into embers. Tools were cleaned and set aside. The anvil stood silent once more. The blacksmith rubbed his hands together, cracked his knuckles, and exhaled slowly. His body ached, but it was the kind of ache that came from honest work. He had shaped metal, met the needs of his neighbors, and kept the lifeblood of the village flowing. Sometimes, in the stillness of twilight, he would take a moment to sit outside the forge, wiping his brow as the sky turned purple and gold. Smoke curled gently from the chimney, and the scent of iron and ash lingered in the air. He might wave to a passing farmer or greet a child who stopped to say hello. He was more than just a tradesman. He was part of the rhythm of the village. His fire lit more than just the forge. It warmed the heart of a community that depended on him. By nightfall, the village would settle into sleep, and so would the blacksmith. His muscles heavy, his eyes tired, but his mind satisfied. Tomorrow would bring new orders, new repairs, and the same relentless heat. But for now, he could rest. Because inside the walls of that soot-darkened forge, he had lived a full day, shaping not just iron, but the very backbone of medieval life. Thanks for stepping into the smoke and sparks of a medieval blacksmith's world. It is easy to forget how much of daily life once depended on the steady rhythm of hammer and flame. From horseshoes to swords, door hinges to farming tools, the blacksmith was the quiet force holding a village together, one glowing piece of iron at a time. His work was not glamorous, but it was powerful. It demanded strength, skill, and endless endurance. If you felt the heat of the forge through the screen or heard the ring of the anvil in your imagination, then you got a small taste of what life was like for these everyday legends. Their days were long, and their work often thankless, but they left behind a legacy forged in iron and fire. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, be sure to like this video and share it with someone who loves history as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring the medieval world to life in vivid human detail. Until next time, remember that behind every sword swung or door opened in the Middle Ages, there was a blacksmith shaping the world in sparks and steel.